The doorbell hit once, then again. Not the loose, friendly tap my neighbors give when they want to borrow a ladder, but the stiff kind that carries paperwork and problems. And by the time I wiped my hands and crossed the tile, I was already rehearsing which client had pushed an invoice to collections or which delivery driver had clipped my yard post and pretended not to notice. Two uniforms stood on the porch with the kind of faces that practice bad news in the squad car before they knock, and the shorter one said my name in that careful tone like he didn't want to startle a horse, while the taller one looked past me into the house the way cops do when they are trying to read how much the walls already know. They asked if I was Michael Miller and I said yes, and they asked if Sarah Miller was my wife and I said yes, and then the shorter one said the words about a hospital and an incident and a local address, and Detroit fell out of my head like an empty bucket because that was where she told me she was at a conference that somehow needed new dresses and late nights and a tone in her voice I had been pretending was ambition rather than exit velocity. I grabbed my jacket and my keys and, out of habit as old as our marriage, I reached for the envelope in the junk drawer because I had planned to meet her at the airport on Friday with a quiet smile and 2 tickets to Aruba and that look you get to wear maybe 3 or 4 times in a lifetime when you know you have done something exactly right for the person you promised to love. The cruiser smelled like coffee and vinyl and something metallic, and the city outside the window moved past in long strips of sodium orange as if it didn't care who sat in the back or why, while I stared at my own hands around the envelope and tried to decide whether I was the idiot or just the man who finally stopped pretending he didn't see what he was seeing. At the hospital, the elevator doors opened like a stage nobody wanted to perform on, and the taller officer, reading from his notes because it kept his voice steady, said the phrase male companion with that soft professional detachment that makes you want to snap the pen in half, and the words didn't echo so much as land, like a wrench dropped on concrete, flat and final and heavy enough to bend the rest of the night around them. There is a version of me, younger and less tired, who would have started breaking chairs just to hear something else break too. But 60 years on this planet teaches you the difference between noise and work, and I have made a living choosing work, so I told the officers I could take it from here, thanked them like a man who was raised right, and walked the hallway slow enough to let the anger find a clean place to sit where it wouldn't spill on the parts of my life that still deserved steady hand. The night nurse spoke softly and checked boxes, and I listened because listening is free and because information is the only leverage you can carry out of a building like this without anyone stopping you. And when she said room 412, I repeated it once under my breath the way you repeat a measurement before you cut. Because mistakes are for people who think they have time to fix them later. I stood at the window before I went in, watching my own reflection float on the glass like a man I halfway recognized. And I thought about the little things we had allowed to die between us, the shared coffee, the Sunday lists, the laughter you only earn when you are broke together and choose to laugh anyway. And I wondered when exactly she had decided that a different set of eyes across a different set of pillows would fix whatever she thought was broken. I folded the Aruba envelope and slid it into my inside pocket where it lay like a warm stone against my ribs, not as a keepsake or a memory but as a reminder that I could still plan, still decide, still move. Because a man who forgets he has options becomes a man who waits, and I am not built for waiting when decisions need to be made with both hands on the wheel. When the elevator doors had opened downstairs and the words male companion hit me, I felt the old life pulling shut like a garage door in a storm, which sounds dramatic until you realize that some doors actually do drop like that, and if your hand is in the wrong place you lose fingers. So I stepped it back inside myself and I set my jaw and I told the part of me that wants to shout that the shouting could have 5 minutes in the truck later but not 1 second here, not 1 breath in front of staff who did not earn my spectacle and not 1 breath wasted on a story I had not heard from the only person who could tell it to me plain. I walked to 412 and stopped, because there are lines you cannot uncross and names you cannot unknow once you say them out loud, and I put my palm flat on the door as if heat could tell me what waited on the other side. And it was cool and quiet like a lie that finally ran out of excuses, and then I opened it and stepped through as the monitor beeped the rhythm of a life I thought I understood, which is the last sound you hear before you become a different man than the one who parked in your own driveway 2 hours earlier. I did not speak her name yet because names are a kind of mercy and I had not decided how much mercy the night deserved. So I stood at the foot of the bed and let my eyes count the bruises and the cast and the swelling at the temple and the scuffed dignity of a woman who had been somewhere she told me she was not. And I held the anger steady like a level on a joist, bubble-centered, because when you start rebuilding, the first thing you need is straight. When the nurse asked if I was family, I answered the only way a man can when the paperwork still says husband, and then I asked the single question that mattered before any others, which was whether she would live, because everything after that is a choice, and I am a man who can work with choices, even the kind that salt your coffee and change your address and teach your children that truth costs something but pays better than lies ever did. And as the machines ticked and the hallway hummed and my hands remembered the weight of a hammer rather than the useless heft of a thrown word, I understood that this was not the night I broke. This was the night I began, because whatever story had brought her to this room, my story from this point forward would be written in black ink and straight lines, with anger sharpened into decisions, and decisions driven by the two names who sleep down the hall from my bedroom and call me Dad. Hospitals are built to make you doubt your memory. Same floors, same antiseptic breath in the vents, same hum that turns time into damp rope. Room 412 didn't care who walked in. It only cared who stayed calm. I did. Sarah lay angled toward the window, hair matted where the 4 tugged. The cast on her wrist looked like a bad promise. It would hold, but it would ache. Bruises bloomed along her cheekbone in colors that don't have names men use. The monitor kept it steady, indifferent metronome. I matched my breathing to it because a man needs one thing he can keep steady when the rest starts to list. I'm her husband, I told the nurse. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to understand. She nodded the way professionals nod when they've seen the other version of a man, voice up, fists out. Detective Brooks will want to speak with you, she said. He's finishing with security. Good. I prefer records to rumors. I stood by the foot of the bed and took inventory the way I do on a job site. What's broke? What holds? Where do I start so the whole thing doesn't collapse while I'm fixing the corner? I kept my hands at my sides. I didn't touch her. Touch can be a confession you regret later. Sarah's eyelids fluttered like someone trying to wake up from a deal they shouldn't have signed. I watched without leaning in. The urge to say her name came and went. I let it go. The door bumped. A plain suit stepped in, mid-40s, compact, eyes that had learned to weigh words. Mr. Miller? Detective Alan Brooks. Chicago PD Special Victims/Assault. You okay to talk? I'm okay to listen, I said. He glanced at Sarah, then at the cast. Security called us from the lakefront hotel. Staff heard shouting, then a crash. Your wife and a male were in the room. Witnesses say she fell against the nightstand during the altercation. EMTs brought her in. She's stable. Wrist fracture. Concussion watch. He didn't let the words linger. He moved to the chair, opened a notepad. I like that, no theatrics. We've identified the male as Trent Collins. You know him? Manager at Summit Marketing, I said. My wife's boss. Brooks made a small mark. He made a voluntary statement. Says they were in a relationship. Says this was an argument about ending it. I'll spare you his adjectives. Generous, I said. Do you want to add anything? Not yet, I said. I want the facts before I supply opinions. The monitor kept time. Somewhere in the hall a cart squeaked. An indecisive rhythm. Brooks continued. Front desk shows the room was reserved in Collins's name. Security tape has him entering with your wife around 6:18 p.m. This isn't the first time. The hotel recognizes them. Clerks remember Tuesdays and Thursdays. That detail slid home like a bolt on a gate. Tuesdays and Thursdays, the nights Sarah stayed late for client pitches. The nights I handled dinner, algebra, forms nobody reads but you sign because schools like signatures. How long? I asked. Brooks checked the pad. Staff recalls go back months. Our subpoena will be tighter than memory. But this isn't new. I let the anger find its shelf. Not the top one where it falls on your head. Not the bottom where it gathers dust. Middle shelf. Reachable. Useful. Any charges? I asked. Not from your wife, he said. Not right now. We documented injuries. If she wants to pursue it, we'll proceed. If she doesn't, this becomes paperwork with a bad aftertaste. She won't, I said, and heard the finality in my own voice. Not protector's certainty, witness's experience. Sarah avoids confrontation unless the audience loves her. Courtrooms don't. Brooks studied me the way a carpenter checks a beam for hairline cracks. You planning to confront Mr. Collins? I plan to make good decisions, I said. If one of them intersects with Mr. Collins, I'll make that one too. He gave the smallest nod. I'll leave my card. If she wakes and reconsiders, call me. If you remember details about the hotel dates, texts, emails, keep them. Truth is easiest to carry when it's organized. He stood. I appreciated the line. Organized truth. That would be my tool chest. When he left, the room held its breath. Sarah's eyes opened halfway, glassy, unfocused, pupils slow to do their job. Her mouth worked around a shape that never became a word. For a second, a reflex I didn't like flared. Help her, tuck the blanket, make it easy. I killed it. Mercy without boundaries is just fuel for the next lie. Michael? She rasped. I stepped into her sight line. Yes. Conference? She whispered, and the word was a small, broken thing, already sorry to be alive. No, I said, calm, even. Lakefront Hotel. Room booked by your manager. Staff heard a fight. You hit a table. Wrist fractured. Tears welled. I let them belong to her. It wasn't. She swallowed. We were ending it. On a Tuesday, I said, like the other Tuesdays. And Thursdays. Her breath hitched. But when a person runs out of lies, they often reach for the one that sounds like virtue. I was going to tell you. You did, I said. Just not with words. The monitor kept steady. Mine did too. I didn't raise my voice because anger is a signal, not a performance. How long? She stared at the ceiling, bargaining with the dots. A while. How long? I repeated. Months, she said. 6, 7. I don't know. You do, I said. But that's enough for now. Please, she said. Don't. Make a scene. Finished. There won't be one. Not here. Not in front of people who didn't sign up for our mess. But listen carefully. From this minute we deal in daylight. No stories. No almost told you. I will protect Emma and Noah from confusion. I will protect myself from disrespect. If you want anything from me, anything at all, it will be purchased with truth, paid up front. She closed her eyes, either from pain or because truth is too bright for pupils that large. I didn't move. I'd already chosen stillness as my first tool. The nurse returned to check the drip. I stepped back, hands loose, jaw set. When the nurse left again, I took the envelope from my pocket and looked at the edge of the tickets. Sea and sun and a version of us that doesn't exist. I folded it once more and slipped it away. Not a keepsake. A boundary. I'll arrange the kids, I said. They will hear a careful version from me tonight. You will not come home. Not now. When you're discharged, your sister can take you. We will talk with a lawyer in daylight. Do you understand? She nodded. A tiny concession from a woman who always preferred grand gestures. I'm sorry, she said. And even now the sentence arrived unfinished. Missing the part that names the thing you're sorry for. Rest, I said. You'll need strength where we're going. I left without touching her. In the hallway, I called a locksmith, then a friend to stay with the kids until I got back. The elevator doors slid shut. I watched my reflection and didn't look away. The man staring back wasn't wrecked. He was measuring. The beep faded as the car descended, and I found a better rhythm. Footsteps, choices, the sound a life makes when it shifts its weight from hope to leverage. The house was too quiet when I walked in. The kind of quiet that only happens when kids sense something is off, even if no one's told them yet. Emma sat at the kitchen island, her homework spread out but untouched, pencil tapping without rhythm. Noah was on the couch with the TV on mute, staring at the screen like he'd forgotten what show he'd picked. They both looked up when I closed the door, and I knew this was the hardest job of my life. Not fixing machines, not building a company, not standing in a courtroom later. This was it. I poured myself a glass of water, took one long drink, and set it down like I was drawing a line in the sand. Then I sat across from Emma, because she always looked for my face when she needed bearings. Noah leaned forward, fists already balled like he was ready to fight an enemy he couldn't see yet. Your mom, I started, steady as I could manage, is in the hospital tonight. She got hurt, but she's going to be okay. Their eyes widened, fear first, then questions loading behind it. I raised my hand. Before you ask, I need to be clear. She wasn't in Detroit. She was here in Chicago. She was with her boss, Trent Collins. Emma's lips parted, then closed again. She blinked, like she was replaying every time Sarah said, conference or late meeting. Noah didn't blink at all. His jaw clenched, the anger in his 13-year-old frame bigger than his shoulders could hold. She lied, Emma asked, her voice small but sharp. Yes, I said, and I need you both to understand. This is not about you. It's not your fault. People make choices. Sometimes they make bad ones. But it never lands on the kids to carry the weight. Noah slammed his palm against the couch cushion. I hate her. I leaned forward. No, don't waste yourself on hate. You can be mad, you can be hurt, but don't let it turn you into something you're not. You're better than that. Both of you. Emma's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She asked questions instead, the way she always had. How long? Months, I said. Too many. I just found out tonight. She swallowed hard. What happens now? That was the question. The one I'd been sharpening on the ride home. Now, we live by 3 rules, I said. 1, dignity. We don't scream in the street. We don't beg. We don't let anyone think we've lost who we are. 2, honesty. No more lies. I'll tell you the truth, even when it's hard. And 3, we rebuild. On bedrock. No more illusions. No more shaky ground. Emma nodded slowly, like she was storing each rule in a locked box inside her. Noah was less convinced. His fists still clenched, his breathing sharp, but he was listening, and that was enough for tonight. I walked to the kitchen cabinet, pulled down the bottle of bourbon I kept for late nights and bad news. I unscrewed the cap, poured 2 fingers into a glass, then looked at the liquid sitting there. I thought about the path my own father had taken, numbing instead of facing, and I knew I wouldn't hand that inheritance to my kids. I picked up the glass, carried it to the sink, and poured it down the drain. The smell rose sharp and wasted, and I rinsed it clean. Emma watched, and I saw the understanding in her eyes. Noah tilted his head, confused, but he'd come to see what it meant later. From tonight, I said, we're building forward. I can't promise it'll be easy. I can promise it'll be real. That's all we need. Emma came around the counter and hugged me tight, her head pressed against my chest like she was listening for proof that I was still steady. Noah didn't move, but he didn't look away either. That was his version of staying close. Later, when they were asleep, I stood in the doorway of each of their rooms. Emma curled under blankets, her face tight even in rest. Noah sprawled with his jaw still clenched. I whispered the same thing to both. You're safe. I'll make sure of it. Then I sat alone at the kitchen table, the empty bourbon bottle in the trash and a notepad in front of me. I wrote the 3 promises again. Dignity, honesty, rebuild, and underlined each one. My hand shook once, then steadied. The night outside was black and silent, but in that silence I heard something new. Not hope, not yet, just resolve, clean and sharp as a tool pulled from the box after too long. Tomorrow would bring lawyers, detectives, and questions. Tonight, all I needed was this. My kids sleeping upstairs, and the kind of clarity you only earn when everything else has burned away. James Carter wasn't the type of man you hired to find out if your wife's late-night excuses were suspicious. He was the man you called when you already knew, and you needed the kind of proof no lawyer could argue down. Former CPD, 25 years. Private investigator now, working out of a modest office above a hardware store on the South Side. No frills, no wasted words, just facts, filed and stamped with the weight of experience. When I walked in, he didn't offer sympathy. He didn't ask if I was sure I wanted to see. He just slid the manila envelope across his desk like it weighed more than a cinder block. The air in that office shifted when it touched my hand. I didn't open it right away. I've learned in life you never rip into something that heavy without preparing your gut. So I sat down, took a breath, and gave him a nod. Lay it out. 7 months, maybe longer, Carter said, voice flat as a carpenter's square. Lakefront Hotel, Tuesdays and Thursdays, just like you told me. Clerks know their faces. We've got security stills, time-stamped. parking garage photos, room charges all booked in his name, run through the same company card he uses for summit marketing. Weekend flights, New York twice, supposed to be Philadelphia retreats. Collins covered it sloppy, but not sloppy enough. He reached for the envelope, tapped it once with his finger. It's all here. Receipts, photos, phone logs. Enough to shut down any courtroom story she tries to spin. Pulled it open. The smell of fresh toner and old truth hit me. Photo after photo. My wife walking beside a man I'd never liked but never feared. His hand on her back in a parking garage. Their heads bent close at LaGuardia baggage claim, like teenagers who thought the world didn't notice. One photo caught me, the way she smiled at him. Not the polite smile she gave clients. Not the tired smile she gave me after long days. It was the kind of smile she used to save for rare moments. When Emma was born, when Noah hit his first home run, when I surprised her with the house keys years ago, that smile was mine once. Now it was collateral damage in somebody else's transaction. Rumors too, Carter continued. Collins has a pattern. Not just your wife. He targets subordinates, married ones mostly. Starts with mentorship, slides into late nights, then full entanglement. It's not about love. It's leverage. Makes him feel bigger. I flipped to the last page. A report, not a photo. Carter's handwriting, tight block letters. Incident: physical altercation at Lakefront Hotel. Subject: Miller fought Collins after learning he was seeing another subordinate. A new hire. So it wasn't about ending things with my wife. She wasn't leaving him. He was leaving her. That's why she fought. Not guilt. Not conscience. Fear of being replaced. That was the gut punch. Not the affair itself. I'd absorbed that bruise already. No, it was learning she hadn't chosen me, hadn't thought of the kids, hadn't hit any breaking point where truth mattered. She fought because she didn't want to be discarded. She lied because convenience was easier than honesty. I set the papers down. My pulse stayed even. A younger man might have punched through Carter's wall, shouted, demanded why. But anger without direction is just demolition. I build. I will fix. Even now. Carter studied me. Some men want every detail. Some want just enough to move forward. You want the whole load. I want it all, I said. Every nail, every screw. If I rebuild this house, I'm not leaving rot in the beams. He nodded and closed the folder. Then you've got it. Keep it dry, keep it organized. Courts like clean piles. I stood, the envelope tucked under my arm. Felt heavier than it should, like it carried more than paper. Carried the end of doubt. And as much as I hated every page inside, I felt something steady settle in me. I know now. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a stumble. It was 7 months of decisions layered one on top of another until the weight cracked the joists. When I got home, I didn't go straight inside. I sat on the porch, envelope in my lap, kids' bikes leaning against the railing. The evening air smelled of cut grass and distant traffic. Honest smells. I ran my thumb along the edge of the folder and thought about the difference between grief and clarity. Grief makes you drown in questions. Clarity makes you breathe, even when it tastes like ash. Inside, I could hear Emma and Noah laughing at something on the TV. For a moment, I let it wash over me. Their laughter was proof there were still corners of my life untouched by Sarah's choices. That was my anchor. I stood, tucked the envelope under my arm, and opened the door. Doubt was dead. Direction remained. And I knew exactly where I'd drive the first nail in the morning. Olivia showed up first, her headlights cutting across my driveway like search beams. Sarah's sister never called, never asked, just appeared, carrying that self-righteous air people put on when they think they're here to fix your life. She stepped out in a beige coat, lips pressed thin, the kind of expression that already had a verdict attached. "You can't leave her there," she said, skipping hello. "She's your wife, Michael. She belongs at home." I stood on the porch with my hands on the rail, steady. "No. She belongs with the choices she made. My kids live here. They deserve walls that don't echo with lies." Olivia's chin lifted. "She made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting milk." 7 months of hotel rooms isn't a mistake. It's a campaign. Her jaw clicked shut. She wasn't here to hear the truth. She was here to recycle excuses. I let her words hang dead in the air and didn't offer more. Silence is sometimes the only tool worth using. That's when the second car rolled up. Sleek, silver, leased. Trent Collins stepped out like he owned the pavement under his shoes. Not in a rush, not embarrassed, confident. Like a man who believed the world owed him explanations, not consequences. He smiled like a salesman. "Michael, we should talk man to man." I stayed on the porch, arms loose at my sides. "You already had your man to man. In my house, behind my back." Olivia cut in sharp. "Don't do this. Violence won't solve." Trent raised a hand, patronizing like he was settling children. "Sarah deserves honesty. She and I." That was the word. Honesty. Coming from his mouth, it was rot dressed as fruit. And before the rest of his sentence could foul the night air, my fist found his jaw. One clean punch, straight from shoulder to knuckles. No hesitation, no wasted anger, just boundaries in flesh and bone. He dropped hard onto the driveway, teeth clicking against concrete. Olivia screamed his name, rushing toward him. He groaned, rolling to his side, stunned more than broken. I didn't step down after him. I didn't need to. One punch carried enough message for a lifetime. I looked at Olivia, voice low but sharp. "Take him. Take Sarah. Take every excuse you're rehearsing. But hear me now. She's not coming back here. Not tonight. Not ever. Divorce papers will handle what words can't." Olivia's eyes burned. "You can't erase a mother from her children's lives." "I'm not erasing her," I said. "I'm drawing a line. She'll see them when the law says she can. But inside this house, they'll have peace. That's what I owe them." Trent staggered upright, one hand pressed to his jaw. His arrogance had bled out with the first punch. He mumbled something about love, about Sarah choosing him. I didn't answer. Men like him feed on reactions. Deny them that, and you starve them. I opened the front door, my back to both of them. "Leave, before my neighbors start wondering why garbage is still on my driveway." I stepped inside and closed the door with a quiet finality. No slam. Slamming is theater. Quiet is conviction. From the living room, Noah peeked around the corner, wide-eyed. Emma's hand rested on his shoulder, steadying him. They had heard enough. I crouched, looked them in the eyes, and spoke with the same voice I'd use on a job site when setting rules. "This house is ours. Safe. Anyone who tries to cross that line learns fast what it costs." Noah nodded hard, pride breaking through his anger. Emma's eyes watered, but there was respect in them too, the kind a daughter gives a father who refuses to bend. That night, after they went to bed, I sat on the porch alone. My knuckles ached, skin split just enough to sting in the cool air. I flexed my hand, looking at the stars over the neighborhood rooftops. The punch wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about Trent. It was about boundaries. And boundaries, once drawn, aren't erased. Tomorrow, the divorce attorney. Tonight, the silence of a house that still belonged to me and my kids. Divorce isn't about feelings. It's about paper. Paper stacked, signed, stamped, filed, and weaponized. By the time I walked into Daniel Foster's office, I'd already buried the urge to shout, to demand justice in words. Words don't move a judge. Paper does. Daniel was a veteran in the trenches. Gray at the temples, eyes sharp, a voice that cut through noise like a blade through drywall. He laid the battlefield out in clean lines. Finances secured. Custody will be contested. She'll push for equal share, maybe more. Be ready for them to call you controlling, alienating, bitter. They always do. I nodded because none of it surprised me. "What about the company?" "She'll come for it," he said flatly. "Half if she can. More if she smells blood. But you've got structure. Books are clean. No hidden accounts, no gambling debts, no skeletons. You're solid. The fight will be custody, not cash." I leaned back, steady. Custody is the line. Then we fight it with facts, not volume. The facts arrived quickly. Sarah's lawyer claimed I was poisoning the kids against her, that my rigid control created distance, that I was manipulating Emma and Noah's loyalties. I didn't need to yell to counter. I brought the truth. Calm, steady, documented. Dates, texts, Carter's evidence. When the guardian ad litem came to interview the kids, I held my breath behind closed doors. Not because I doubted them, but because children should never be forced to choose. They came out pale but strong. Later that night, Emma whispered, "I told her I want to live here most of the time. With you." Noah added, "I said I don't trust Mom right now. I don't hate her, but I don't trust her." That was enough. More than enough. Then came the unexpected call. Daniel put it on speaker so we could both hear. A woman's voice, tired but sharp. "This is Sarah Mitchell. I used to work at Summit. You need to know, Trent Collins wasn't just sloppy. He was flagged in his background check. Prior misconduct. HR knew. They hired him anyway." Daniel's eyes lit up like a man who just found a key to a locked door. "Can you prove that?" "I've got the emails," Mitchell said. "They buried it. We all knew. They didn't care." When the call ended, Daniel leaned back, tapping his pen against the desk. "That's it. Corporate negligence. They put him in power knowing exactly what he was. They'll settle, fast, and quiet. They won't risk a jury." Within weeks, Summit folded. Not in the public eye, not in headlines, but behind closed doors with numbers scribbled and signatures swapped. They cut a check that handled legal fees, counseling for the kids, and locked Sarah and Collins together in the fallout of their own choices. Sarah tried one last tactic in mediation, crying, pleading, spinning tales about loneliness and misunderstanding. I let Daniel do the talking. My silence weighed more than her words. When her lawyer claimed I was vindictive, Daniel slid the envelope of Carter's evidence across the table like a slab of concrete. The room went quiet. Leverage is just organized truth. That's what Carter had said, and now I understood it. You don't win by shouting. You win by stacking the truth higher than the other side can climb. When I left the courthouse that day, papers in my hand, the city felt different. Not lighter, not yet, but steady. The kind of steady that comes after a storm tears the roof off and you're standing there, drenched, knowing the worst gusts have already blown through. Sarah had her stories. Trent had his patterns. Summit had its negligence. I had the kids, the house, the work I'd built, and the spine to keep it upright. That night, Emma asked if the fight was over. I told her the truth. Almost. The hardest part's done. The rest is cleanup. She nodded, and for the first time in weeks, her shoulders eased. Noah cracked a smile when I told him Summit had fired Collins. "Guess he's not so impressive now," he muttered. I laughed once, low and short. Men like him never are. They just pretend until someone calls the bluff. And that was the thing I had called it. In court, on paper, with silence where shouting used to live. The bluff was over. Courtrooms don't look like the movies. No grand speeches, no slamming gavels. Just tired people, wood paneling, and paper shuffling like the sound of rain on a tin roof. By the time my case number was called, I wasn't nervous. Nerves are for men who still think they can lose what's already gone. The judge read through the agreement. Joint legal custody, primary physical custody with me. Sarah would get structured visitation, alternate weekends, supervised holidays until she proved stability. Child support calculated, assets divided, the house and company safe in my column. Clean, simple lines. When the judge asked if we both agreed, Sarah's voice cracked. "Yes, Your Honor." Mine didn't. "Yes." The pen slid across the desk. I signed my name with steady strokes. Every loop and line felt like a nail driven into the coffin of old life. Sarah signed too, slower, her hand shaking like maybe she thought hesitation could rewind the years. Couldn't. Outside the courthouse, she caught me by the arm. Not hard, not desperate. Just enough to stop me. Her eyes were wet, but not with the kind of tears that speak of remorse. More like mourning a game she lost. "I'm sorry," she said. I looked her dead in the eye. "You're sorry it ended this way. Not sorry for the choices that led us here." Her lip trembled, but she didn't argue. "You want back into the kids' lives?" I continued. There's only one road. Consistency, honesty, respect. Anything less, and the door stays shut. She nodded once, like a student who'd just been handed instructions she wasn't sure she could follow. Trent didn't last long after the firing. Rumor had it he burned through his savings fast, and whatever love story he and Sarah thought they had collapsed under unemployment and consequence. Men like him don't stick around when the shine wears off. For me, life didn't suddenly feel lighter, but it felt straight. No more bending around lies. No more pouring time into something that leaked out the bottom. Emma and Noah knew where they stood, with me, in a house where truth wasn't optional. That night, after the courthouse dust settled, the three of us ate pizza on the living room floor. No celebration, no big speeches. Just food, laughter in small doses, and the comfort of knowing the worst was behind us. Emma leaned her head against my shoulder. Noah asked if we could get a dog. For the first time in a long time, I said maybe and meant it. Signing my name in that courtroom didn't feel like the end of a marriage. It felt like the start of something else. Something sturdier. Something real. The bell cut through the night like a blade. 2:17 a.m. I was already half awake. Years of fatherhood train you to surface fast at any sound. Two officers stood in the cold glow of the porch light, hats in hand, faces lined with the look that precedes words nobody wants to hear. "Mr. Miller," the taller one said quietly, "your wife was in a single-car accident, Lakeshore Drive. She didn't make it." The words landed without drama, just heavy, intoxicated, alone. That's how Sarah's story ended. By morning, Olivia was at my door with a folded letter Sarah had left in her bag, addressed to me and the kids. I read it at the table. Apologies scrawled in uneven lines, words about mistakes and regrets, a half-hearted kind of clarity that arrives too late to change anything. I told Emma and Noah as gently as I could. Emma cried quietly into my shirt, her voice muffled when she asked, "Was she sorry?" Noah stared at the floor, fists jammed into his pockets. "Yes," I said. "She was sorry, and I wish she'd found that truth sooner." At the funeral, the chapel smelled of lilies and wet coats. Friends whispered, family fidgeted. Emma gripped my hand so tight my knuckles ached. She looked up at me and whispered, "Are you okay?" For the first time, I answered honestly, "No, but I will be." Grief had moved in, but it wasn't here to drown us. It was here to remind us we'd survived the storm, even if the cost was more than we ever wanted to pay. Months passed, not quickly, not slowly, just steady, like water wearing down stone. Grief counseling became routine, not punishment, not cure, just a place where Emma and Noah could spill pieces of themselves without me rushing to fix every crack. I sat in the same rooms, spoke when I needed to, stayed quiet when silence said more. On the back porch one evening, the sun bleeding orange over the rooftops, Emma admitted something that cut deep. "I'm forgetting Mom's voice," she whispered, eyes on the yard. "I can see her face, but I can't hear her anymore." I rested my hand over hers. "Memory keeps the shape, even if the sound fades. You'll carry her in pieces, and that's enough." Later that night, Noah asked his question, blunt as ever. "Do you think she meant it? That letter?" I didn't answer fast. Truth deserves more than reflex. Finally, I said, "Yes, I think she meant it. I just wish she'd meant it sooner, when it could have changed something." He nodded, jaw set, already learning the lesson life had forced on me. Timing matters as much as intent. We weren't the family we used to be. That version was gone, burned away in secrets and ash. But we were still a family, the family we were now. Honest, steady, moving forward, even if some days it was just 1 inch at a time. As the porch light flickered on, I realized survival wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic victories. It was about showing up, every day with both feet planted, ready to keep going. And that was exactly what we would do.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.